Welcome, it's Jason and Shelly Fulham. We wanted to sit down with you and share a little bit about our journey with her diagnosis of stage one HER2 positive breast cancer. And it's been a journey, right? And one of the things we want to do in this podcast and for all of you is to let you know that the journey is not as tough as it may seem when you get that diagnosis. And just to give you our experience, by no means are we experts at any of this. A lot of what we're going to say is funneled through our experience. So yours may be different, but what we found helpful is when people would tell us what their experience was, we could take it for what it was worth, take out what we needed, and then go from there. Would you agree, honey?
I do agree. There aren't very many videos or audio help when it comes to cold capping. So hopefully this experience will help you in whatever journey you're on, whether you're cold capping or you want to tell somebody else about cold capping. We have a lot of good tips that worked, and obviously you can see after 6 rounds, I still have a full head of hair. So it definitely does work. Again, we're not experts. We're only going to share our experience, and hopefully it helps.
Yes. Well, honey, maybe starting off by describing what cold capping is for someone out there who may not know what it is. And what we're going to show the process for those of you who are able to watch video wise, but what is cold capping?
That's a great question, and a lot of people have no idea what cold capping is. Um, it is somebody came up with the process of freezing your follicles during chemotherapy in order to save your hair. The bottom line is during treatment, when you're receiving chemotherapy, it goes to the outer extremities first, your hands, your feet, and your head, your hair specifically. And you may have seen people wearing frozen gloves or frozen socks. That's to help with the neuropathy that comes with chemotherapy. Well, the frozen cap or the cold cap freezes your follicles in your hair so that when chemotherapy goes to your hair, it is then basically scared away because of the coldness, because of the frozen temperature, and it then goes to the cancer. So instead of going to your hair follicles and killing them, hence losing your hair, it will go so far and then it will start to attack the cancer instead of killing your hair.
Absolutely. And as we shared at the top of this podcast, we're not the experts. We're going to share our experience. We're going to actually show you how to put on a cold cap. There are some websites we're going to get at the very end that will be helpful with tutorials. And we have organizations that really funnel their energies into getting the information out. But this has been our experience. Shelly, maybe describe before we begin showing some of the stuff of cold cap and some of the equipment that we use. When you walked into this experience of the diagnosis, obviously, but also looking at cold capping, how did you feel? Like what were some feelings you had just walking into the experience, I guess is a better question.
Honestly, I had never heard of it until I started Googling it or, watching TikTok videos of people who have done it before. So it was all information to me at the very beginning. When you get a cancer diagnosis, it's always been a given that you will lose your hair. And when you have a breast cancer diagnosis, you lose your hair and your breast. It's just a given in order to heal or in order to get the treatment that you need to cure the cancer or get rid of the cancer. When I found out about cold capping, it was new, like I said, but it also was it was presented as something that was very expensive and not easily accessible. So it did take a little bit of digging to find exactly what it was and how to get it. But once I did, it was very, very easy. The process was not hard. Expensive, yes, but there are grants and companies that will help with the cost. So if saving your hair is something that you think is a part of your journey that will help you, because it does help many people, there definitely is ways to do it that are not as much of a financial burden.
Yes. One of the things we got the opportunity to do also, and it just occurred to me to say this, is that we got to educate people about cold capping, which is what we're doing here, but also reaching out to your doctors and oncologists because cold capping is fairly new, I would say. And while at the hospital that we chose to go to, they were ready for us, knew, and they prepared for us. There are some hospitals that may not have that. So some of it, I won't say some of it, a lot of it is education on your part, but it may call upon you to educate those that are treating you too. Would you say that too?
Absolutely. Once I told my oncologist that I was interested in the cold capping, they were a great help with getting me in contact with some people who, the companies that were willing to help with the cost. They also were able to refer me to dry ice vendors and things like that. So even though they don't have a hand in it, it's not covered by insurance, and it's all new to them as well, they do have some really good resources. If you ask your oncologist or let them know you're interested in it, they should be able to help you out with getting you in contact with your local suppliers and things like that.
All right. Absolutely. So we're going to begin by showing some of the elements of cold capping. I've got two in front of me, and then Shelly's going to show some particular things specifically for ladies and I would assume gentlemen if you're dealing with wanting to protect your hair from the immense cold that comes from the cold cap. I will say, as you see the cold cap here, you'll see this is what it looks like, and on the inside it's kind of an igloo of what would you call it, like
Gel.
And then on the outside it's more of a cloth protectant. These, and typically with cold capping you'll have three. One is kept in a cooler, so cooler of dry ice. How much dry ice did we get, honey?
I purchased 60 to 70 pounds of dry ice for each chemo treatment. And we'll get into that process in a minute, but I want you to see an actual cold cap right here. And so you know, the dry ice was actually kept in ice bags similar to what you would get at the store when you buy a bag of ice. And we would keep those each cold cap in dry ice, and then they would rotate out. The second piece of equipment I have here is our thermometer. And with this thermometer, you are called to keep each cold cap minus 28 degrees to minus 33 degrees Celsius. I remembered that like right off, didn't I? And basically, if you're watching, you would take your cold cap. You got to be careful with the pokey thing here. Anybody will ever tell you. And you would just roll it over while it's sitting down and take the temperature, because you want that temperature to be minus 28 to minus 33 degrees Celsius before we put it on that person. And then the last thing, and I want you to point to some stuff that were very helpful for you to put on before this. This is very similar to the cold cap. Again, it has the gel on one side and the padding on the other side, and it will wrap around, as you'll see in just a few moments. But it also keeps any spaces between the hair and the back of the head. It keeps all of that snug for the time that the cold cap is on, which is generally 25 minutes. So literally, for those, you're going to want somebody in there with you, whether it's husband, spouse, whatever. And that person, every 25 minutes during the course of chemotherapy, the cold cap is changed, plus 5 hours after chemo is done. So as you leave the hospital, every 25 minutes, a new cold cap is put on, and a new one of these is put on, and you're just rotating consistently. Did I miss anything there? To give you an example, on your day of chemo, you'll get to the hospital early morning, 8 or 9 o'clock. Plan on cold capping until about 7 or 8 p.m. So you can say that your entire day of chemotherapy, you will be cold capping every 25 minutes. There are specifics that your company will give you based on their recommendation, but typically you start cold capping after your pre-meds, as soon as they start your chemotherapy or your immune blockers, your estrogen blockers, whichever one it is, depending on your treatment. But you definitely want to have it started after your pre-meds, and then all the way until 7 or 8 o'clock, depending on what time you leave the hospital. So just plan for a very long day. Every 25 minutes, this cap is going to be changed.
Awesome. All right, Shelly, if you want to share some of the stuff in our pack. So in addition to cold capping, the cold pack that goes around your head. Lastly, sorry I didn't show this. These are some straps, and you'll see us use these shortly. They also seal in that cold. As you take the cold caps out of the dry ice, you will have a pair of gloves. Layered gloves are the best. They're awesome for the caregiver that's coming in there to put those on. They come out, you set them out, you take the temperature, and then, oh, there they are. Look at there. Gloves such as these, and they're awesome. And then as you put the cold cap on, every 25 minutes you want to make sure to do that. And it becomes a rhythm. You get in a process of it. If you're sitting there thinking, oh my gosh, I've heard of this, or I'm going to watch some videos on this, but I don't know that I can ever do that. We were there. We'll talk about that after we do the cold capping. But Shelly, if you want to point to some of the stuff in your bag there that were helpful for you during the process too.
Sure. Now, being the patient, there really isn't much that I can do because I'm hooked up. Literally, my port is accessed. I can't leave my chair. So I'm not much help. But there are some tips and things that I learned and was able to do for myself that do help, and I'm going to share some of those with you. First, because it is minus 28 to minus 33 degrees, you want to protect anything that may get frostbite. So I purchased these from Amazon. You can get them on Amazon. And they're little earmuffs. And essentially they go over your ear, but they don't cover any of your hair. And you want that because anything that's covered isn't going to get as cold as it should be. So these came in like a pack of 4, gray and black. So these were a great help because you're going to have these on from the time that you start until the time that you finish at 7 or 8 o'clock in the evening. So you definitely don't want something that is uncomfortable. I have my earrings on for this video. I should have taken those off. You don't want to wear earrings the day of chemotherapy trying to cold cap. But for the presentation, I'll just leave them on. And you can see that these cover my ears very well. It's not covering my hair at all. I also have in my little handy bag, these are panty liners. Yes, panty liners, I said it. Essentially, what you do is you cut it according to your shape of your hairline. In advance, we've cut them. So all I have to do is put this on my forehead, peel the back off, put it on my forehead without covering any of my hair and without covering my eyebrows. That's very important because you don't want to cover your eyebrows because when you peel it off, you won't have any left. So panty liners, very easy to purchase off of Amazon or Walmart or wherever you shop. Next I have this little bit of gauze and some scissors in my bag, and essentially all I'm doing is cutting this gauze because I have a part and I don't want my head to get frostbite where my part is. I don't know if you can see it. Is my part accessible? You can see it. Okay. Again, anything that you don't want to get frostbite, you want to cover. So I just have a little bit of tape here and some gauze, and as simple as it is, I taped this to my
right in there.
To my panty liner.
Yep. And
I put it over my part. Now the gauze that I use is thin so that it doesn't block the cold to getting to my hair. But now that part of mine isn't going to get frostbite, which is pretty important. Lastly, what helped a lot, because if you can tell I have a lot of hair, is you want to hold your hair down with a wig cap or a wig net, not a hair net, because a hair net isn't going to fit snug. You want a wig cap. So this wig cap came in like a pack of 6 for just a couple bucks, and essentially all I'm going to do is cover everything. I'm covering my earmuffs that I have on. I'm covering my panty liner on my forehead. Everything is covered. And the wig net is very thin, so again, it's not preventing the cold from getting to my hair. Looks silly, I know, but you're not here to be beautiful. You're here to save your hair.
One of the things, and you kind of pointed to it earlier, as I'll get the cold cap ready for it in a second, is you had a bag where you had all of your stuff in there, and that's key. You saw the panty liners were in there, the hair net is in there, the wig net is in there, the gauze, scissors, everything you need, and even having a mirror, that was another thing that you always have, because you want to make sure that the gauze and everything is placed right. And as that person, as her helpmate that's there putting the cold cap on. And again, remember, you're doing this throughout an entire day. So there would be moments where Shelly would ask me, "Oh, is my gauze in the right place? Is everything where it needs to be?" At times, when I would take the cold cap off, it would pull the netting off, and so she would have to readjust it. So that was the one thing, and we'll kind of troubleshoot some things in a minute, but it was always like, oh my gosh, I got to put the cold cap on instantaneously when you do have a few moments. So don't, freak out if it doesn't go on snug, or you have to rewrap, or it pulls the hairnet off and she has to readjust and put that on. But I love how you said that, honestly, that having her have that taken care of made it really easy for me to do my part when it came to wrapping in the cold cap. So Shelly, I'm going to have you kind of reposition toward me. I'm still sitting, and then I'm going to reposition toward you, and shouldn't mess up our mics or anything. What I'm going to do, and again, as I said earlier, this is an example of a cold cap. It is already we'll say for instance that I've already used a thermometer and taken the temperature, and it's between minus 28, minus 33 degrees Celsius. Now this was something that I don't know we were originally taught. We might have been. She does something that was super helpful for me. Now you see she's holding the straps, right? And she's gonna tuck those straps under her chin. So I'm not really doing anything at this part, okay? See? But this part right here, she was able to adjust the cold cap, if you could see. So all I have to do is come up front with the straps, like so. So it can be tight. And that, because I can't do that and put the straps on, if that makes sense. Now this part was interesting. As you notice, me and my wife have kind of a height difference. So normally I would be standing for this, but for sake of this podcast, I'm going to be sitting. Can you still see me? Okay, I'll stand then. So with this, what she does is she leans into me. Super helpful. All I do with this hand, wrapping this under, and then bringing it as tight as I can over. Same thing here. You can see it real good. Taking this, wrapping it under, bringing this as tight as I can, just like that. So it's tight. Now at that point, she does something that's super helpful. She can loosen the straps and see how tight it is.
Once I loosen the straps, I'll be able to tell him it needs to be tighter someplace, because once I tighten these straps, it's really hard to tell anything. So when you loosen them, you can tell if this cap is on too loose or not, or if it's not cold enough at the top. You can feel that once you undo your chin straps. But then you want to put them back.
Yeah. And again, it's at this point, we've done it several times. If you mess up and she says, oh, it's not tight enough, then you can go back and make it tighter. It doesn't hurt her at all. And you notice I'm not wearing gloves. The initial taking them out of the cooler, you have gloves. Now I don't need to wear them, okay? Here you have the strap. No, Shelly, if you can turn just a little bit, you can see the spacing here. See that? And that you want to keep that cold air in because there's hair right there. And so what I'll do, standing up, I go from the back right over.
And I'm leaning down so that he can see the back.
Right, because you want to get it from the back here, and then you go right up. Perfect. Come down there we go. And it's not meant to look pretty. All the straps you can see, they're kind of crisscross. That's okay. The next, these are just regular straps. You will get this with your kit, God willing. This, again, from the back, it's meant to keep in as much of the cold as possible. And then there's a second strap right here. And again, you're going to go from the back. And that's tight. Now, 25 minutes, you set an alarm on your phone. And, basically, especially if you're in the throes of chemo, or if it's just right after chemo, once that 25 minutes is over, usually about the 3-minute mark, I go ahead and get the next cold cap out. I take the temperature, because at times with all that dry ice, it may be colder. You know what I mean? So if that's the case, you wanted to get it to that minus 28 to minus 33 degrees Celsius. So you got to let it warm up a little bit, and that's okay. So again, 25 minutes, and then you do the same thing again. And then that cold cap goes right on top, and it kind of rotates down to the bottom. Anything that I missed on that?
Just from my standpoint, I'm going to loosen this so
Okay.
that I can talk better. From my standpoint, I'm really there isn't much that I can do to help this process. I can lean in, I can offer some resistance when he's pulling to make it tighter, but honestly, as the patient, there isn't much that you can do from this point other than just withstand the frozen head.
How did it feel to maybe describe a little bit of how it felt, because I know people who are listening, watching.
They did explain about shocking your follicles, and that's the initial part of when you first put the cap on. Shocking your follicles really does just that. It is painful. Imagine brain freeze times 10. It is painful, but you just withstand it, and as it's on for a while, it gets warmer and it gets more tolerable, and then each time the cap goes on, it doesn't burn as much, but it is very cold, and you do get like an instant headache, which is why just relaxing, staying covered up, relaxing, it really does help. There isn't anything else that you can do to contribute to the cold cap process other than maybe keep a timer, because you're connected. Remember, you are connected to the IV pole. You can't go anywhere, you can't do anything. It did help as we did it a few times to learn how to lean in towards him and where to apply the pressure or the resistance to make sure that the cap was tight enough. That's what you can contribute while you're getting it put on.
One thing too to mention is, we've talked a lot about during the process of chemo, but when you come home, again, you're going to be doing this 5 hours or so afterwards. And so being able to time that out from the last cold cap, if you're coming from a hospital that's a great distance away, don't be so defined like 25 minutes, we got to do it at exactly 25 minutes. And I know we felt that pressure a little bit. But again, you want to be within as close to that range as you can. And I know you found this, Shelly, when you got home, they're very tired. Their body has been, through however many hours of chemo. And so, then it becomes my job every 25 minutes to have to wake her up or, get her set. And so I think we found coming home, you relaxing, you're not trying to do anything around the house because you're tired. And then just going through that cold capping process.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We can demonstrate taking it off,
yeah,
because that's extremely important.
Mm-hmm.
This cap that we're using for the demonstration is not frozen, but when it is frozen, it is more solid. It actually will look like a helmet when you take it off, like a batting helmet, so to speak. This one is going to not be
it'd be more malleable.
It will be more. Yeah, it's not frozen, but when you take it off, essentially. He's going to take off all of these straps. And once your straps are off, then you as the patient can take the entire cap off just by undoing your chin straps and lifting the entire cap straight up and over. And then you want to set this aside. Don't worry about this right now.
Yep.
The important part is getting the next one on.
Ready to go.
So we took that one off. Once he gets the next one on and situated, he can take care of that. He can put that back in its bag, put that back in the cooler, get that set. But he now would be putting on the new one before he takes care of that one.
She basically takes that off, and while she's doing that, I'm getting the new cap, putting that on, and going through the process we just showed you. And then once it's on, timer started for 25 minutes, I'm taking that apart and put it back in the dry ice. Good. Anything we missed there? Before we're you probably want to take that.
I do.
Go ahead. I'll talk a little bit. One of the things too is that support person. We kind of look at frequently asked questions. One question you might have even watching, can I actually do this? I remember how overwhelmed we were watching the video, and we're like, oh my gosh! Like in the first time we tried it, it didn't work, and it wasn't tight enough, and it was too loose, and it didn't look like it did when they were doing it online, and yes, the answer to that is yes, you can definitely do it. Don't sell yourself short. It took practice. It was one of those, we tried it a couple of times. I did a horrible job at it. I'll be the first to admit I did a horrible job. We took a break, left it, Took some time, because again, it's overwhelming. You're not only dealing with, cancer, you're also dealing with, I want to do this right because we want to try to retain as much hair as possible. And I should say, it's been great that we've had great results, but, the goal here is to retain as much hair as possible. That's all. It works different for different people. We're not the experts. I know we keep saying that, but we're not. This is just our experience. And if our experience can help somebody, we're all for it. So, as that person who's a support person, you may think, I don't know if I can do this, but it's vital because as I realize she's already going through something and dealing with cancer and trying to mentally grapple with that, that support person needs to be there and be ready to go and do the best you can. So I know that was a question. What was another, maybe frequently asked question or a question that came up for us?
Like I said, as the patient, I found myself often singing his praises because I can't do anything while I'm sitting there. I'm just appreciating the fact that he's there doing all the work every 25 minutes, getting into that cooler, getting his, his nostrils burning with dry ice and his hands freezing cold. And so a lot of times I just found myself singing his praises. People would ask me all the time, oh wow, you still have your hair. And I would have to explain the cold capping process, but then also give all the kudos to the cold cap king here for his efforts because I couldn't have done any of it without him.
And I received that. It's a team effort, and you see we're wearing our team shirts, and we have a whole squad of people and people who family members who had to learn cold capping who had never heard of it. And so we hope this has been beneficial for you. I'll say this, you mentioned earlier about cost, and please know that with a lot of hospitals and breast cancer centers, if they aren't aware of cold capping, they soon are to be aware of cold capping. And so there are grants, as Shelly said earlier, and places that you can go to get help for that. In addition to all the stuff you're going through, but to not have to worry about that is key. Any final thoughts? I don't know if we missed anything.
Yep, I will just give you the knowledge that I have about cold capping. There are a couple of different methods. One is there were only 2 hospitals in our area that had this, that was able to accommodate this, but it actually is a cap that stays on your head that connects to a machine and a hose to the back of the cap, where you don't have to change it every 25 minutes. That machine keeps it cold. But there aren't very many hospitals in our local area that had that it was available for us. So we were going with a specific hospital that I didn't want to change. So we had to use a different method. The method that we used, and I'll put the plug out here, is Penguin cold capping. The Penguin cold capping is this method that we just showed you. This is their cap, the Penguin cold cap. They're great. They'll send you this box full of all of the supplies that you need. Even some of the things that I showed you came in the box of supplies that you need. They also can help you with getting financial assistance if you need it. They have vendors who will participate with them. So that method is the method that we had to use because the other cold capping method wasn't available for us at our hospital. So be prepared to carry a cooler with dry ice. Oh, speaking of dry ice, many people will say go to Meijer or go to Walmart. What I found is that they would charge about $2 to $3 per pound for the dry ice, and I would get 60 to 75 pounds every 3 weeks. You can imagine the financial burden that would be. What I did is I found a gas supplier, so basically like not a retail store, and he was very happy to help me. I actually referred a couple people to him. He now has a sign out in front of his business that he sells dry ice, and he is providing it at a very discounted rate, over half off of what the retailers are providing it for, just because of the concept. And he was very appreciative of what I explained to him and how it works and what the dry ice was doing for me. So that's over half off of the price of the retail if you can find a local, they're like a gas supply, propane supply vendor that also has dry ice.
That's awesome. Well, we'd like to thank you for joining us again. We just want to be here to help, and hopefully this was helpful for you in making some context and maybe pursuing cold capping further in your cancer journey. And that's it from us. Thank you.